How is it going, and thank you for tuning in this video. As you all can tell by the title below, today I'll be giving you my live review of attending AEW x NJPW Forbidden Door 2026 live from the SAP Center from San Jose, California. So without wasting any more time, let's go and dive right into this review. Now, I will say right from the get-go, there was a lot of wrestling to digest at Forbidden Door, so if I do kind of skim through a lot of these matches, it was just a lot of wrestling to digest, so my memory might not be the freshest on everything, so I might just skim through things, not because I didn't care or I didn't like it, it's just because, like I said, a lot of wrestling, a lot to digest and remember, so everything might not be the freshest, but I'll do my best I can. But yes, I did attend a Forbidden Door this past Sunday, my first AEW show in almost 3 years. The last time I attended a show was back when Adam Copeland made his Dynamite debut. I got confronted by Christian Cage, and he had the whole, go fuck yourself moment with them. That was the last AEW show I attended, and here we are almost 3 years later, attending Forbidden Door. And originally, I wasn't really planning on going to this show. I know they announced it a few months back. I was like, you know what? I'll kind of see how the card goes, and then I'll decide then. And going up to the event, I found tickets for a great deal. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go, because at the very least, I'm going to get a great wrestling show, whether I care for the card or not. So I decided to take a chance on it, and as the card got announced, I'm not going to sit there and lie to you. I was disappointed in terms of the Forbidden Door concept, which in my opinion, I think they should just drop it. If they can't secure the talent for it, there really is no reason for it. I know the last couple of years, it's been dimming down on, the Stardom, New Japan talent, CMLL talent, whichever, cross-promotion talent they want to advertise. They've been kind of, cutting back on it. So, in my opinion, unless they can 100% secure those talent for a show, I think Forbidden Door should just be done as a concept and just be brought in, as maybe a surprise show, or maybe just, whenever you can do it, whenever you can secure the talent. So diving into Forbidden Door now, I was actually there for the pre-show, the buy-in. I wasn't really planning or caring to be there for it, but I was in my seat early enough. I actually got there earlier than I thought I was going to be perfectly honest. I was in my seat about 10 minutes before 4, so I was there, right before the buy-in started. So I was in my seat at 3:50. I want people to remember that time. Later on, like towards the end of the video, when I talk about leaving the show. So 3:50, I was in my seat. 10 minutes before the buy-in started. Then, of course, we went to the buy-in, which featured 3 matches. The first match we had was Daniel Garcia taking on Drilla Moloney. It's funny, man. I remember seeing Drilla Moloney as Dan Moloney back in, the WWE UK title tournament, almost 10 years ago now. And here he is, he's still trying, still clawing his way up, and he's definitely been improving and definitely, having a showcase nowadays, it seems like, in New Japan, since he's been more of a singles guy, it seems like. But I thought him and Daniel Garcia had a pretty damn good match here. Garcia was running away right from the get-go, and then, Drilla kind of had to chase him. Marina got involved, of course, at one point, even choking out Drilla. But towards the end, back and forth stuff, Drilla was able to counter Daniel into the Drilla Killer. Hits it 1, 2, 3. Drilla Moloney defeats Daniel Garcia in the first match on the buy-in. So good stuff. Not gonna sit here and complain at all. And then following that, we had the TBS Championship Survival of the Fittest qualifying match. Skye Blue taking on Maika. This was another good match here. Skye Blue's underrated talent. I'm surprised she hasn't done more in in AEW. I thought for sure maybe she would have gotten a TBS title run by now. But her and Julia Hart are a good tag team. I don't mind them as a tag team, but they just don't really do much with them. But yeah, this was a fun match between both of them. Maika got the victory with the Michinoku driver, which surprised me. I thought for sure that they would have put Skye Blue in the Survival of the Fittest match, but Maika had a good match with Skye Blue. So yeah, really good showcase for both women. And then we go to the main event of the buy-in, which was for the AEW Women's World Tag Team Championship. Divine Dominion taking on Thunder Rosa and Olympia. This was actually a really good match. I had a lot of fun with it. The crowd was really into it as well. Divine Dominion, I'm not too familiar. I've been familiar with Megan Bayne for a good little while. I've been surprised they haven't, handled it better in my opinion. But this tag team with her and Lena Cross, they're actually a fantastic tag team. I actually really enjoyed them as a team. I thought they worked tremendously well. And, I hope they continue to dominate, the tag team division in AEW. But yeah, this match itself was very enjoyable. Thunder Rosa had a very good showing. At one point, I actually thought Thunder and Olympia, even though going into it, I thought there was no shot they're going to win. I almost bought that they're going to win a few times towards the end. You had some nice near falls. Olympia was able to show up her strength against, Megan Bayne and Lena Cross. But yeah, overall, like I said, a very good, tag team title match between both teams. At the end, Divine Dominion was able to cut down Thunder Rosa with the big superplex, a big boot combo, followed by the Divine intervention for the 1, 2, 3 victory to retain the Women's World Tag Team titles. So Divine Dominion retained. And I thought it was funny because when they won, their theme played, I mean, obviously, but like they played the whole thing, and like their theme has like a whole like 30-second intro of them talking, and like it played the whole intro again, and it just came out very awkward, like them talking over, and then you have like the ring announcer announcing the winner, and you have commentary. It just seemed like a whole mess with like a whole bunch of different voices talking at once. So I just thought that was funny that they played the whole intro, the theme over again, when they could have just cut that into the main part. But yeah, I thought all the matches by and entertaining. The women's title match, women's tag title match definitely was the highlight of it. But yeah, in terms of a pre-show, I thought it was damn good. And following the end of the buy-in, of course, we move into the main pay-per-view, which opened up with a 3-way tag team match. The Young Bucks taking on Unbound Company, taking on Skye team. This was a damn hot opener. The crowd was going absolutely nuts for this match. The people around me absolutely love Mystico, man. They were going absolutely nuts for Mystico. Wanted to see him in the match as much as humanly possible. But yeah, this was definitely, it was a spot fest. People are all over the place. You got 1,000 super kicks. You got a lot of, you know, high flying. It was just all over the place. It was an absolute mess, but that's what it was going to be anyways. That's what it needed to be, in my opinion. And it was a lot of fun. It was fantastic. I had a lot of enjoyment. Everyone was able to get their stuff in. You know, Shingo was doing his corner chops, and then, you know, got cut up with super kicks, and then there was like a super kick off between the Young Bucks and Skye team. Just a whole bunch of fun. Everyone looked great, and it was a fantastic way to open the show. It was a very, very hot opener, in my opinion. Finish came with the Young Bucks hitting the Melter driver on Teton for the 1-2-3 victory for the Young Bucks. So yeah, hot opener. Crowd was very into it, and this was a fantastic way to start the main show. And going from a crazy, chaotic match, we go to the complete opposite with Kenny Omega taking on Zack Sabre Jr. This was a fantastic match as well. I'll be honest, you know, I think my expectations were a little too high for this, because I was expecting this to be, I'm not saying it wasn't great or anything, obviously, but I thought it'd be a little bit better. But nonetheless, it was still a fantastic match. I'm not taking anything away from it. Obviously, the first half of it was very technical, you know, very mat-based with, you know, both men feeling around. You know, Zack Sabre Jr. working over Kenny, and Kenny kind of just trying to out-wrestle him. The match went into the outside, where they worked onto the announce table, where Kenny was trying to put Zack Sabre Jr. through it, but Zack was able to counter into like an octopus hold, and they both kind of just fell off the table onto the outside. Match rolls back in the ring, and then it comes kind of just, at that point, it becomes kind of a brawl where they're just hammering each other. You know, Kenny has had to hit like 15,000 V-triggers, man. Then, you know, Zack Sabre Jr. hitting PK kicks left and right. They were just really hammering their hits in towards the second half of it. So it transitioned from a mat-based into just a hard-hitting, you know, back and forth bout between both of them. And at the end, you know, Kenny was teasing one-winged angel several times. You know, every time he'd go for it, Zack would somehow counter out of it, and, you know, would hit Kenny with something. But yeah, they were just going blow for blow towards the end. But then Kenny got the upper hand, hit the one-wing angel finally, and 1-2-3, Kenny Omega defeats Zack Sabre Jr. Like I said, fantastic match. It was great, but for some reason, I feel like it just didn't hit that high that I was hoping it would hit, but didn't take anything away from the match whatsoever. So Kenny wins. Fantastic match against Zack Sabre Jr. Following that, we had the AEW Continental Championship, Jon Moxley defending against Bandido. This was very good, and I'll be completely honest, I think I expected more as well from this match. You know, just Bandido and Moxley on paper, I just thought that it would be a fantastic match, and it just didn't get to that level I was hoping for, in my opinion. Now, like I said, I still thought it was very good, but for some reason, it just didn't hit that note that I was hoping it would hit. But Moxley was very dominant, you know, very early on, working over Bandido to the point where he was actually ripping off Bandido's mask. Bandido got busted open. He was bleeding everywhere. Bandido actually had a fantastic comeback on Moxley, where he was beating the shit out of Moxley. Ended up getting some very close near falls on Moxley, where, you know, everyone actually almost believed he was going to win at some point. So, you know, towards the middle and end, it really started picking up and becoming more 50-50 back and forth. But then Moxley got the upper hand, was able to choke Bandido through the ropes, pulled him into the ring, pulled him into the bulldog choke, but then Bandido tried to roll him up. Moxley countered that into a crossface. Bandido got out of that, but then Moxley ended up putting him back in the bulldog choke, and then Bandido ends up, you know, submitting to Moxley. So Moxley retains the Continental Championship. Like I said, I thought it was very good, but just didn't hit that greatness that I was hoping that it would have hit. And immediately after that match, I actually left my seat and went to the merch stand, because originally when we first got there, I wanted to go to the merch stand, but man, that merch line wrapped all the way around. And I will say this is kind of a rant real quick. It is not to be mean as well, but this is the truth. I understand for like the TV shows, there's typically only, if at most, a few thousand people at the shows, right? So I understand not bringing a lot of merch because not many people really going to be there. But for your pay-per-views and your bigger shows, there's going to be typically, at least maybe around 10,000 people. I think for this show, actually, it was 9,000, I think was the total number. Not the total number, but it was around that number. But nonetheless, you understand, like for the bigger pay-per-views, they should bring, they have bigger crowds. The problem is they bring the merch that's like prepared for like a TV sized crowd. They don't bring merch for like a pay-per-view sized crowd. And that's always a problem because they run out of things quickly at all the shows. This is like one of the biggest complaints I see people always talk about is that their merch is always very limited and very small. And, that seemed to be the case here. So I went to the merch and I'll be honest, there wasn't really a whole bunch I wanted. Mainly because first off, everything was very, very expensive. Like everything was overly priced, like more expensive than WWE shows. Honestly, if you think WWE merch is expensive, their merch was even more expensive than AEW shows. So that was the reason. And secondly, really wasn't much, that appealing to me. There were 2 t-shirts I actually did like, which I did get one of them. They did have an official zip up hoodie, but it's summertime. I don't really need more zip up, any type of hoodies either. To be fair, I have like millions of them at this point. And there was an event poster, but it was, sold out by the time I got to the booth. But I got there, and I can already tell one of the shirts I wanted was sold out. And I was like, whatever. So I was hoping they had the other shirt that I wanted, and I asked the guy, I said, hey, do you have, my size of this shirt? And he goes, actually, we have one left, and it's actually the display one. Would you mind to display one? I'm like, no, that's fine. I don't really care. You're just hanging up. So, yeah, I was able to get the very last shirt in my size, which of course was the event shirt. Nothing special about it. It's just a logo right there where it just has Forbidden Door. Of course, they had the companies that are supposed to represent it. And then you have the date and everything. You got San Jose, California on the side as well. And then the back, very basic. This is your basic AEW shirts, event shirts anyways. Of course, you got AEW, New Japan, CMLL, Stardom, Forbidden Door. I was there. The date and of course the location. So yeah, that was the only thing I got at the show. The other thing I wanted to get was like a white shirt, but it was like more of a New Japan style event shirt where it has like the corner logo, and then it has like, all the stuff in the back of it. That was the other one I would have wanted, but by the time I got there, like I said, it wasn't even on the display anymore, so they were sold out, I figured. But yeah, Tony, bring more merch to your shows. So that was a shirt I got, and as I was getting that shirt and coming back to my seat, the beginning of the next match was happening, which was for the IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship. Shota Umino versus Pac, and to be perfectly honest, this was a fine match, and there wasn't anything bad to it, but it was just there. There wasn't really anything significant that happened to it. Pac's a phenomenal wrestler, but he's just been floating around for years, it seems like, because he doesn't want to commit to living in the U.S., so, he can't really get a proper push in AEW, and, Shota Umino, I've seen him get big pushes, but it just seems like he never really, really fulfills the shoes he's supposed to be filling, so I don't know. The match wasn't bad or anything. It was a fine match, but just wasn't really anything there for me. I mean, I think the big spot that people cared about was when Pac gave me like a razor's edge to the outside through a table. I think that was the most interesting part of the match. But besides that, there wasn't really much to it, to be perfectly honest, from my personal opinion. Like I said, not a bad match. It was good, but probably the least interesting match on the card, in my opinion. Shota Umino gets a victory with the second chapter, hits it on Pac for the 1-2-3 and gets the win. So retains the IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship. Of course, afterwards, the Death Riders come out and they kind of have a stare down with Shota Umino because, obviously Jon Moxley used to be his mentor in New Japan, back towards the pandemic days. And as that was happening, Tanahashi comes out. Hiroshi Tanahashi comes out to I don't know, fend off the Death Riders. I don't fucking really know what the point of it was. He comes out and just puts the global title around Umino's waist and just puts his hand up while the Death Riders retreat. Like, I don't understand the point of that. I don't know if that was just their way of getting Tanahashi on the show for fun, or I don't know what the deal was. But Tanahashi saves Shota from the Death Riders. But yeah, Shota and Pac, like I said, it was a good match, but like I said, for my personal preference, it was just the least interesting one on the card. And following that match, we had Thekla defending the AEW Women's World Championship against Starlight Kid. This was very good. This was very enjoyable. I think Starlight Kid won a lot of people over. I think this was a match that people weren't really caring for. But as it was progressing, people were, getting invested into it. And people were getting won over by, Starlight Kid. And even Thekla. Thekla is someone that I haven't ever really cared for. And to be perfectly honest, I've even thought she was overrated. But she's kind of won me over at this show. I thought she was very enjoyable, especially her stuff with Toru Okada, her, just beating him and him just being over the top with his selling. I thought that stuff was absolutely hilarious. So that interaction was great. And yeah, Thekla and Starlight Kid had a great match. Starlight Kid gave her one hell of a fight. They had some great back and forth stuff. Thekla was going for the stomp several times, but every time she'd go for it, Starlight Kid got out of the way. At one point, Thekla was, mocking or on the top rope, just showboating for a good little while. And then Starlight Kid just drop kicked the shit out of her off to the outside. So yeah, some real good stuff between Thekla and Starlight Kid. But towards the end, Thekla ended up obviously retaining the AEW Women's World Championship, hitting the stomp on Starlight Kid and retaining the championship. So yeah, very good match between both of them. And then, following the match, Drilla, Hart and Skye Blue come out, Triangle Madness with Thekla. They end up attacking Starlight Kid, cutting her mask off, and Thekla holding it up, putting it on, just mocking her and just being an absolute menace. Thekla, like I said, she really won me over at the show. It seems like, man, I actually really enjoyed her stuff. I just can't get over how awesome she was during all of this. But yeah, she was an absolute menace. The stuff with Okada was great with his selling, just being over the top, and the match itself was very good. So all in all, really good stuff with Thekla. And from one world championship to another, being the AEW World Tag Team titles, Cope and Cage defending against the Dogs. This was a fine match as well. This is kind of honestly on par with the Pac and Umino match, where it's just like, it was kind of just there. Wasn't much to it. It was just basically a formula where the Dogs were working over Christian the entire time. They were building a hot tag towards Cope. Cope eventually gets it back and forth, and then there's a referee spot where the referee gets knocked down. Finlay uses a shillelagh, hits, I think it was Cope, or it might have been Christian. Doesn't really matter. Hits one of them with it. Everyone's down, but then all of a sudden the lights go out. And I'm like, I have no idea what's happening. I'm like, oh, who's coming out? I'm like, I know it's not going to be New Day. So I'm like, who's this going to be? And then it cuts to Bang Bang Gang on the stage. I'm just like, man. I'm like, no hate to Bang Bang Gang whatsoever. But I'm like, man, like, this big old presentation just for them. So, of course, they're shooting the guns off and everything, and the lights go back. And before the lights come on, you hear a shing! And then everyone goes absolutely fucking crazy. Jay White's in the ring, ends up hitting the Blade Runner on David Finlay, which at first I was kind of confused. I'm like, damn, why is he attacking David Finlay? But then it clicked that, hey, it was actually at the New Japan show at Battle in the Valley 2 years ago, which I was at. Jay White, when he lost the Loser Leaves New Japan match against Eddie Kingston, before he could say anything, David Finlay attacked him. And I think he might have even kicked him out of Bullet Club. I don't remember, but I guess he attacked him and pretty much said, get the hell out of here. So it made sense for Jay White to attack him. So yeah, Jay White attacks him, takes him out, sets up Cope to hit a spear on Finlay for the 1-2-3. Cope and Cage retain the AEW World Tag Team titles, which, hey, I didn't really care for the match itself. I was more happy to see Cope and Cage because out of all my years of going to shows, I've never seen Edge and Christian team together live. So this was my first time seeing them team together live. But not only that, them as tag team champions, that was all I could really ask for in terms of that match. So Edge and Christian, or I'm sorry, Cope and Cage retain the tag team titles. Like I said, the match with the Dogs, it was a good match, but it was just not really much to it besides the ending. So, but it was all worth it seeing Cope and Cage team together live for the very first time. And then we go into our first Owen Hart Foundation tournament final, of course, which was for the women's. Mercedes Moné taking on Maya World. This was a fantastic match as well. I honestly didn't think much of this match going into it, but I left being very surprised with how great it was. Mercedes Moné gave a lot to Maya World, who had a lot to prove, in my opinion, and she definitely proved a lot here. She was fantastic, the counters and everything, her holding her own, to the point where I was going to believe that maybe Tony was going to pull an upset and have her win. There's a lot of time towards the end where she was getting a lot of close calls, a lot of great transitions and everything. She just really proved herself in this match, and I thought she worked great. And I think Mercedes definitely fed her to where she might as well, I don't want to say made her a star, but she could be a prominent face in the AEW women's division going forward, and I could see why. She definitely showcased and proved a lot in this match. And yeah, it was a hell of a match. It was very enjoyable. Mercedes hitting the Three Amigos at one point and hitting the splash. Match went to the outside. Mercedes took some sick bumps as well. Took a sunset flip into the outside, which that was contributing to why I thought Maya World might have won towards the end, was that spot right there. But yeah, it was a fantastic match. And towards the end, Mercedes was able to get back to the ring. Several times she tried to hit the backstabber, but Maya World was able to avoid it at every cost. But Mercedes was able to finally hit it, put her in the statement maker. Had a great rally where Maya was going towards the ropes and the crowd was just really cheering around, but then Mercedes was able to roll her out back towards the middle of the ring, and then eventually Maya World tapped out, and Mercedes Moné became your back-to-back Owen Hart Foundation Women's Tournament winner, and will be challenging for the AEW Women's World Championship at All In. Assuming taking on Thekla, who's obviously the champion, assuming she'll be champion still at that show. So yeah, Mercedes Moné wins. Very predictable. I think everyone expected it, and I'm pretty sure everyone expects her to win the championship as well at All In. So yeah, Mercedes wins. Great match against Maya World. Definitely blew my expectations away, and I think Maya World definitely made a lot of believers and a lot of people with her performance. So yeah, fantastic match. And then following that, we had the 12-man tag team steel cage match. Team Briscoe taking on Team DCMJF. This was fucking nuts. I'm gonna go right from the get-go and say it. This was absolutely insane. This was amazing. I loved every second of it. It was an absolute car crash wreck, and I love it. Sometimes in wrestling, you just want to watch some crazy shit, and that's exactly what this match was. Everyone was able to get their stuff in. There was a bunch of violence. There was thumbtacks being introduced, but Darby Allin going face first into the tacks, man, to the point where you can tell by his reaction, he's like, not doing that again. That was even a bad call on my part. Kyle O'Reilly introduced an NES, used that as a weapon, even blowing the cartilage, because that's how you gotta do things. There was a mysterious bag in the match at one point that Roderick Strong was just swinging around, and then later on, I forgot who unzipped it. I think it was Okada, maybe. I don't remember who. Someone finally opened the bag, and it was Lio Rush, and it was like the craziest shit. He just was like, he came out doing his creepy shit, and then he just like whooped everybody's ass on Team DCMJF. And then like Okada finally, puts him down, and then they just shove him back in the bag. Like, it was absolutely hilarious that he comes in, kicks ass, and gets shoved right back in the bag. That was absolutely hilarious in my opinion. There was a big bump where Darby Allin, during his entrance, like I don't know what he used, but like he like tied a bag on top of the cage, which, by the way, the cage was round, which I really liked that. I thought that was different, and definitely set the stage for something unique. So I did like that it was round. But yeah, it was he tied something on top of the cage, and Kevin Knight was running from Darby, and Kevin went to grab the bag, and the bag just explodes, and Kevin falls off, crashes to a table onto the outside. Absolutely fucking nuts. Just so much violence and just so much just crazy bumps in this match. It was just absolutely nuts. And sometimes you just want to enjoy, like I said, a car crash of a match, and that's exactly what it was. And towards the end, just absolute mayhem was ensuring. It looked like Team DC MJF was gonna basically just destroy Mark Briscoe. He was pretty much fending for himself, and everyone was kind of just like, all right, we're all gonna take our turns beating him. But then out of the blue, not really out of the blue, but out of nowhere, Andrade turns on his team. He takes everybody out. He's like, fuck you guys, takes his shirt off where it says fuck Dawn, fuck MJF, fuck everybody. He's flipping everybody off, flipping off his teammates, like, fuck you guys. And of course that gives Team Briscoe the upper hand. That leaves Mark Briscoe hitting the Dre Driller on Jake Doyle for the 1-2-3 and getting the win. So Mark Briscoe's team gets the victory, thus giving Mark Briscoe an AEW World Title match on Dynamite this coming Wednesday. Like I said, man, this match was just a car crash, and it was just very, very enjoyable. And yeah, it was very, very fun, man. And honestly, after seeing this match, I was like, how was this not the main event? How no disrespect to Ospreay and Swerve, but how are they gonna top this? And they somehow did, man. Because we go into our main event, which was our final match of the Owen Hart Foundation tournament for the men's. This time, Will Ospreay taking on Swerve Strickland. What a fucking match this was. These two went out there and just had an outstanding wrestling match. They were able to tell a fantastic story as well, with the callbacks to their previous matches, just what they've been doing with the current story, with, Ospreay not being able to pull the trigger and Swerve pretty much telling him, you ain't that guy. And, Ospreay had to prove to himself here. Just the counters of everything, them getting busted open, and Swerve was just bleeding fucking buckets, man. He was just bleeding all over the goddamn place. It was just incredible match Ospreay and Swerve had. I haven't seen their first one since in a while. I wouldn't say since it happened because I didn't watch the show live. I remember watching it a couple days later, but I honestly don't have a fresh memory on the first match, so I can't say which is better. But this was just, yeah, this was an outstanding match, and obviously a match of the year contender. I've seen people say it is match of the year, and in my opinion, this is the best AEW match I've seen. You know, maybe match of the year as well. I really love that Masters Mask match, so I don't know. But this was yeah, fantastic match from Ospreay and Swerve Strickland. Love the finish too as well. You know, with Swerve hitting the hitting the house call, and well, the Death Riders come out ringside, tried the cheer on Ospreay, gets hit with the house call, and his face goes to to Moxley. Moxley's like, come on, fucking let's go. And Ospreay's like, no, let's fucking do this. Hits the Hidden Blade for a near fall, hits the Stormbreaker for a near fall, and then of course they want to joust. Ospreay's like, you know what, I'm gonna go for Hidden Blade. I assume Swerve was gonna go for the house call or something. I'm not entirely sure what he was supposed to go for, but they want to do a joust. Ospreay ends up hitting the Hidden Blade, ends up following up with a paradigm shift, not once, not two, I believe 3 times he hits it, and then follows it up with a Tiger Driver on Swerve for the 1, 2, 3. Will Ospreay defeats Swerve Strickland, wins the 2026 Men's Owen Hart Foundation Tournament, and is going to All In to challenge for the AEW World Championship, which is currently held by MJF, which could change, which I do think will change beforehand, which I think Kenny Omega won that beaten MJF beforehand and faced against Ospreay instead. But yeah, Ospreay wins, and I'll be completely honest, as soon as Ospreay won, I fucking left. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, as soon as the 3 count, I got up and fucking left. I didn't stay for the celebration. I didn't stay for to see anything happen afterwards. I immediately left because it was 9:50 by the time I left my seat. I got there at 3:50, left at 9:50. I was there for 6 hours. And I'm not saying 9:50 was late, but when you're there for 6 hours, you just get to a point where you just want to go home. And that's one of my gripes with AEW. And this, I'm not trying to rant real quick. I'm not trying to shy away from the show. But personally, and I'm not going to complain about too much wrestling, but it's like, dude, when you're going to have 9 matches on the main show, and almost all of them go 20 minutes, and your main pay-per-view is going over 5 hours, and you're doing this almost every month. It's like, dude, you gotta figure something else. You gotta figure something out, man. To me personally, I'm not speaking for everybody, I speak for myself. That's what that turns me away. Between WWE and AEW, there is no happy medium. With AEW, you get too much wrestling. With WWE, you get too little wrestling. Can there just be a medium, please? That is asking for. I just want a 3, maybe 3.5 hour wrestling show with 7, 8 matches. That's all I want. That's all I'm asking for, and we can never get that. We either get 5 matches on the show or we get 15 matches on the show. So can't win. I just wish the show was a little bit shorter. I mean, it doesn't take away how fantastic it was. This is a phenomenal show. And I can already see people imagine complaining about too much wrestling or getting your money's worth. That's not what it's about. I'm not complaining about how long it was. I mean, I guess I am complaining, but I don't know. It's just, to me, it's just I'm all for giving the people their money's worth, but at the same time, it's it's a little overkill at the same time. That's just my personal opinion on the matter. But 6 hour show, that might be the longest show I've ever attended, to be perfectly honest. And I've been to some long shows. I've been to WrestleMania 32, 33, and 34, which I'm not sure if I think 33 was the longest show I've been to, because that was over 5 hours, I'm sure. The main show was, not including the pre-show. So, I don't know. This might have been the longest wrestling show I've ever been to. Definitely one of the longest wrestling shows, but in terms of being the longest, I'm not entirely sure. But take that all away. Nonetheless, the show itself was absolutely incredible. It was an amazing show. AEW always delivers in that department. I will never doubt on that. So, Forbidden Door was a fantastic show. I can't wait to watch it back. I'll probably watch it back in 2 or 3 sittings, but I can't wait to watch it back nonetheless. It was very, very, very fun. So I'm glad I went. I wasn't too sure about going. And honestly, when I was going, I wasn't very excited about going, really. But being there and leaving, I'm glad I did. I'm glad I went to the show. And I definitely had a great time there. So hope you guys did the video. If you guys did, please feel free to leave a like below. And of course, until next time, I'll see you guys then. Thank you guys for watching the video.